Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm, as you can imagine, part of the Institute for Leadership in Action. If you're interested, I would recommend that you apply. So today's workshop is about leading with others and essentially making decisions through collaboration. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what collaboration means and what collaborative decision-making in general is. Today's facilitators include myself, Omar Kasani. I am a junior double majoring in biology and global studies. And unfortunately, Raquel Ruiz wasn't able to make it, but she will be at tomorrow's session if you enjoy us so much that you want to join us tomorrow. And then we also have Rob.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Demarco. My major is social work. My minor is criminal justice, and I'm a field placement student, Institute for Leadership in Action. I encourage all of you to apply as well.
So to start off, just to break that ice, we're going to talk about what experiences we've had in the past that were particularly good or particularly bad projects that we've worked on through groups. So if anyone wants to share or discuss a good or bad group project or experience, that it would be great to learn more a little bit about you and learn about this experience.
I would love to go first, Omar, if I could.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's actually a very recent experience. Not all group projects go smoothly, and I think, it might have something to do with COVID nowadays. So I'll use that as an excuse, I guess. But either way, we have a group project. It's a couple of us in the class, and about a week. No, let me backtrack. About 2 weeks before, anything was due, I reached out to the other members, never got an answer. So there was definitely a lack of communication there. It's not like the assignment was anything crazy or out of the ordinary, but sometimes, some people just want to get a head start on things. So I think, taking action as a member of a group is always a good thing. But for some reason, it just didn't work in my scenario. Nobody reached out. And then a couple days before the assignment was due, I finally got an answer from someone, and they weren't really too nice about anything. They didn't think that I should have took the lead or started doing the project without them. And, being in a group, you want to talk calmly and professionally to these people. But sometimes it really, really is hard. But that's what I did. I was professional about it. I explained my side. I reached out before. It's only a couple days away, and it's too late to just start from scratch or just take a whole different direction with the project. We did end up getting it in on time, even though the other participants didn't really do anything besides throw a name on it. But I think that's a good example of, we want to work well as a group, and it's really hard if the other members aren't responding properly to your communication. And then sometimes it gets too close to a deadline where you just want to, like, this has to be done, I'm going to do it. And then in my case, it started kind of a backfiring chain of events. But that's not to say that, all group projects are terrible and bad and nobody answers you, but that's just the first thing that came to mind.
Thanks for sharing, Eddie. I think that's I'm really sorry to hear that happened to you. Unfortunately, this seems to be the unfortunate truth about some of these COVID experiences with group projects. But I see Trisha would like to share, so I'm going to pass it off to Trisha.
Hi, everyone. So Eddie, I totally agree with you. And I think you did a great thing by taking the lead, especially because your group members were unresponsive to your emails or correspondence. With me, last semester, I had been taking classes with someone for a few years, and she was practically in all of my classes. We had a good relationship. I invited her to my home before COVID, to do group assignments together. And last semester, out of nowhere, I felt like she was acting differently during our Zoom classes. Whenever I would respond to something in class live, she would just always try to say something negative about my personal experiences. And we ended up having to do a group assignment together. The professor didn't know what was going on. I would never mention it. And they put me in a group with her. And so I was having trouble getting on to the link that was sent to us for us all to work together on collaboratively. And I had sent her messages. I even called her. And she was like, well, I don't know. I don't even know how to get on there. I don't know what to do. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to email the other group members, which I did, thankfully. But with my perseverance and, I just kept playing with the computer until I finally, thankfully got in. And when I got in, I saw that the whole time I was calling and texting my group member for help, and she kept saying, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get in. She was in it, and there was messages for the time where I was talking to her. She was like already in it because there was like I guess a group chat with the group. And I was like, oh my God, like that broke my heart because, I never had an issue with this person. And I've always like tried to help this person with other school assignments. And after that, I was just like, you know what, I have to stay away from this person because I don't know why they're doing this. But and then after that, she never reached out to me again. I guess she felt embarrassed that I happened to come on and everybody was on there live on the chat. So, I just wanted to bring that up to say that was a very bad group experience for me because I'm like a team player and I will really try to be all on board with everyone and try to help others. So that was just really a sucky situation for me.
Thanks for sharing, Trisha. I'm really sorry to hear that. It's quite unfortunate, but it's definitely good that you were proactive in reaching out to your group member. Before we go any further, does anyone have any good experiences? I want to go off on a positive note here. It's okay if you guys don't, but hopefully we all have at least that one good experience that we can share.
I'll mention a good one just to counterbalance the terrible one.
Sure.
A lot of the work in the Institute for Leadership in Action, I think, all the work that I've been a participant in, I think everyone works great together. There's a lot of open communication, sharing of resources, a lot of communication flow. I think, everyone who is in the Institute can vouch for this as well. I think it's a great example of great, group, workshops and projects like the one you're doing now. I think everyone comes together well and has something, to offer that just helps the overall group.
Thank you, Eddie. That's definitely nice to hear. I'm glad someone else feels that way. I think that we're off to a pretty good start. And I think on that note, we'll continue with our slide.
All right, thank you, Omar. Yeah, group projects can be a headache anywhere that they exist, but so there's 3 different levels of group work. There's competition, cooperation, collaboration. Competition would be working towards a common goal that cannot be shared. So, for example, say that the agency you work for is having some kind of budget crisis or something, and everyone's working to try and solve it, not for the good of the company or anything, but because they want the glory. That'd be an example of competition. Cooperation would be working towards completion of one person's goal, such as the agency's goal, solving the budget crisis for their benefit. But collaboration is when you work towards a mutual shared goal. And this would come when everyone feels like they have a personal stake in the resolution of this budget example. Stakeholder involvement. It gives new perspectives from positional experiences. It gives you diversity, new insights that you might not have otherwise looked at, presents management with growth opportunities in regards to moderating the interaction, and the ability to collaborate successfully can be a measure of the strategies. If you're working, encouraging enough involvement, do the people feel empowered? So the exchange boundary framework is a good way of understanding how power works in a group setting. Power is defined by the exchange of resources. These resources can be decision-making authority, capital, physical, tangible resources, or the discourse of what's being said about the project, or why the resources are distributed as such. And group empowerment depends on the level of contribution. So this chart over here on the right, just good way of saying that the more contribution that you get from the group members, the more personal stake they feel they have, and will be more empowered in the group setting. And that is really the essence of collaboration. Benefits of collaboration are it involves a shared joint vision beyond one person, promoting achievement and productivity, maximize potential of each unit, and self-awareness and sense of belonging. A good way of summing all that up is the old adage that a happy employee is a productive employee. When you make people feel that they're included and valued, that's when you're going to get the most out of them, and that benefits everyone. So just summarize what collaboration is. It's autonomous stakeholders with common concerns, interacting with shared rules, norms, or structures, and deciding on or acting on related issues. Any questions so far before we move on?
Feel free to type in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself.
No? All right.
We'll give it a second just to see if anyone's typing.
All right.
Okay. Well, if anyone thinks of any questions, feel free to put them in the chat anytime.
We can always circle back. Okay. So we are the Institute for Leadership and Action. So we will be connecting all this information on collaboration and empowerment, group empowerment, to leadership. Leadership can be defined as balancing the roles of monitoring, acting, focusing on internal and external group issues. Leaders also want to welcome controversy as inevitable, but it can also be a valuable teacher as long as it's handled with respect and courtesy, and is facilitated in, as part of the group function. And in effective teams, all members will take on these roles. Team leadership about a clear goal, worthwhile and measurable, results, something that's results driven, and the success can be incorporated into the structure. It has competent members that know their skills and have the right knowledge and skills to get things done. Unified commitment, this team spirit. Collaborative climate where contribution is welcomed and accepted. And high standards, high standards, expectations, and accountability. Each member has to have it, but they'll only feel valued. They'll only have them if they feel valued, empowered, and hold a stake in the outcome of the endeavor. A good way of seeing that is the relational leadership model. This involves the ability to find common ground, development of a shared vision, valuing diverse perspectives and beliefs of members, seeking to incorporate the input of all stakeholders, and seeking contributions of all group members. Mainly, just to summarize that's a culture of inclusion, is how leaders encourage collaboration, and collaboration is one of the best ways to get the best possible outcomes for everybody and the organization. So with that, I'll kick it back off to Omar.
Thanks for the good lessons, Rob. I think that was a lot of good points to take in. Real quick, Natalie in the chat said that I think team sports are an interesting combination of competition and cooperation, and I fully agree. I mean, there's both at once, and you're kind of balancing both in a sense. You know, you're competing against another team through the cooperation with your teammates. So thank you for sharing that, Natalie. So we're gonna do a little activity here. I think there's gonna be a lot of fun. So I don't know if you guys have seen The Office, but this activity is inspired by The Office. Specifically, in one episode, Michael has a surplus, and Oscar explains it to him that if you have a lemonade stand and your parents give you $10 one year, and then you only use $8, and the next year they'll only give you $8. So that way you have to spend your money essentially this year, so you got $10 next year. So I'm sure all of you guys know what a surplus is, but hopefully that kind of jogged your memory of the episode of The Office. But anyway, so we're going to start off with this scenario, and we're going to talk it out loud together. So your student organization has a $1,000 surplus of funds to use within 1 week. If you do not use the surplus, you will lose it in the next fiscal budget. You can spend it on member incentives, or you can spend it on supplies for the club. So this could be for events, activities, etc. So we're going to collaborate and make a decision on how the money should be spent. So feel free to pick your position. And as a group, we're kind of going to try and collaborate to figure out what the best use of this surplus is. So to get it started, I'm going to ask those who think that spending it on member incentives to give your point, and then we'll pass it on to those who think that spending it on supplies is better. So does anyone want to start us off? Okay, so member incentives, that's a good point. So member incentives could be used as to buy, say, t-shirts for your clubs, your members, or give them gift cards for those who frequently come and support your events. Basically, Rob mentioned earlier that a good employee is a happy employee, or a happy employee is a good employee. So in this sense, whereas your club members are not employees, they are active participants in your activities that will help promote the function of your club. So investing in your members to make sure you have a functional club would be the goal of member incentives. So I'm going to pass it off to Sid to talk about this. Sid, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think I'm on the side of member incentives because your student organization cannot function without them. And it doesn't really matter whether you have an event that costs a lot of money to run, or if you just have like a game night, as long as you have people coming, interacting, and learning what your club's about and participating in your mission and your goals, that's the most important thing. And if it takes a little pushing to get them there in the first place, then that's fine.
Really great points, Sid. Does anyone want to echo or kind of share their support with Sid? You can either write it in the chat, or I encourage you to unmute yourself.
But Sid, what's the good of getting them in the door if then you don't have any money left over to do the work or drive the mission of the organization? I would say that maybe a better use of the money is on supplies, because you can find creative ways to recruit people to come in, and if they believe in the mission of the organization, they'll come. You just want to make sure that you've got enough money in the hopper to do the work.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to pass it off to Steve.
Yeah, so I think I think the money could be allocated to both, where you can have some for supplies which are needed to do what your work is on, but also to the members that are also helping, because they want to feel at least some token of their hard work. Not that they should get something out of it, but it'll be nice for them, you know what I mean, seeing their work being appreciated, and it'll be nice once everything's accomplished. So I think both, like doing a little bit for both is the best option.
Thanks for sharing, Steve. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one said you can't use both, so the money on both, so why not? Natalie, do you want to share your point?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I think like a good split would be like 75%, so $50 for the incentives, and then a little, we can throw in a little 250 for the supplies. I guess I would need like, I would be like wondering, okay, like what is this? Why do we need, what are the supplies that we need, right? Like to throw an event, because I feel like whatever, whatever the club may be or whatever the event may be, we could probably get the supplies for it in a more cost-effective way, but still, allocate some money for that, but then spend the bulk of it on the incentives to get people to come to the event. Because if nobody comes to the event, then we spent $1,000 for nothing. But otherwise, then we just spent $250, which is a lot less. So that's what I think.
Good points, Natalie. And I like that you're bringing in numbers and putting things into a budgetary perspective. On that note, I'm going to pass it off to Trisha, and we'll move on to our second scenario.
Oh, I totally agree with using the money on both. I believe the organization should come up with a budget on how much they need before the end of the, before the funds, because they only have a week to use the funds. I will come up with a budget to see what supplies does the club need. Okay, how much are these supplies going to cost? Can we get the supplies and still have money left over for the member incentives to get the people in, to get the ball rolling? I would definitely use it on both, because I just think the money would be well spent if it's used on both, but definitely with a budget involved, ensuring that the club does have the supplies it needs.
Thank you for sharing, Trisha. Really good points as well. So it sounds like a lot of you guys are echoing the same points. Do we think we have a decision here? Did we come up with a good collaborative decision? Can I get a thumbs up in the chat if you disagree, or we can do the crying face if you disagree? Awesome. So it seems like we have mostly thumbs up. I do see one thumbs down. But on that note, we're going to proceed to the next scenario. So here in this second scenario, which is a continuation of the first, I should note, if we don't spend the surplus, it will get evenly divided among the e-board members through a tuition voucher, which, by the way, is permitted in the club's constitution. So, it's not like a secret embezzlement. So on that note, is there a middle ground that benefits all stakeholders in this, where, potentially that we could maybe reward the e-board somehow, which would be us, by the way, just keep that in mind? Or can we also do member incentives? Or can we do supplies? So if someone wants to start us off with.
I think the issue with potentially doing something like this is, when people join student organizations, I think one of the main things is that, they're not, like, you don't want to come off as selfish. You don't want to join it for your own benefit. Like, you're joining a group, that's already standing. So I think maybe doing something like this kind of comes off poorly to the other members in the organization and can cause some conflicts within the group. So I don't necessarily think it would go over smoothly if, the e-board wanted to do that. I think keeping it split between, the two scenarios that we mentioned prior, I think that it's still more appropriate than doing something like this just to avoid some intergroup conflict.
Very interesting points. And I see that Sid agrees with you in the chat. And Natalie has her hand raised, so I'm going to pass it off to you, Natalie.
Yeah, I think, like, as nice as it would be to get the tuition voucher, I would say that, like, this addition to the scenario, like, shouldn't really change what we were going to do anyway. Money really, like, is the root of all evil. So I feel like if other, like Eddie was saying, if other group members found out that this is how the money was spent, even though there were other things that we could have spent it on. It just doesn't, it's just not a good look, I don't think.
Thank you for sharing, Natalie. Does anyone else want to kind of oppose that? No. So in the chat, if no one wants to oppose that, can you guys give me a thumbs up or a crying face if we seem to have come to a group decision? Okay, so I'm seeing majority thumbs up. I'm going to throw you a curveball just for the sake of the argument. Your members don't have to see your budget. So this is a student organization. You know, what if you guys hide your budget? Does that change your answer?
Omar, you're getting real shady, man. No, I think like what I said before, you know, like Sid just said, it's even more shady. We don't want to hide what we're doing to the student organization, because then I think we're getting into the territory of slight embezzlement. So we'll avoid that at all costs, I think.
Michael thinks I should check out the ethics and integrity workshop, which if you guys are interested, I would recommend that workshop. So on that note, because we seem to have kind of come to a group decision on the original point, does anyone oppose Eddie's point? If you oppose it, you could just give me a crying face. If you support it, you could just stay blank. Okay, so I'm not seeing any opposed. So we're going to move on to the next situation. So your club organization, it has a common goal. It has a common theme. So you can either do the tuition voucher, you can invest in supplies or invest in your members, or you can donate the extra surplus, the $1,000, to a nonprofit that supports your group's mission. So again, is there a middle ground that benefits all stakeholders, or do we want to stay with our original goal? Does anyone want to kick us off on what you're thinking? Kind of just talk out loud.
I was thinking of something, but let Sid go first because I just went first.
Sid?
So I think the 750 250 idea we were talking about earlier might work for this, and then splitting the 750 between incentive and supplies. I just see a problem with giving the entirety or the majority to a donation to a nonprofit, because even though that aligns with our goals, if we give away all of our money, how are we going to keep on continuing as a student organization? And wouldn't it be more beneficial to our cause if we kept on going for years and years instead of just giving all of our money away in a donation?
Great point, Sid. I just want to point one thing out. So as a surplus, you've already spent all the money your club needs on the necessities. So the $1,000 is extra in addition to everything that you needed. So this is just something for us to all keep in mind.
So here's the way I think about this is, what could be like, do you think if we volunteer our time, it could be just as, if not more valuable than a cash donation to the nonprofit? So if we come to agreement that we do want to donate some type of portion of the surplus to the nonprofit, that's fine. But by cutting down on the donation and maybe donating some member time and going and lending a hand, I think maybe that could potentially even help the organization more.
So if I understand you, or just to put out a point there, you're saying kind of invest in the other things, and those will, and also kind of volunteer your time as a club, which would involve the club members. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's some type of middle ground, like math money wise, that I can't really think of right now. But I think like you made a good point. If you go that route, then maybe that 750 for member incentives is appropriate because you're volunteering your time. I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm thinking now.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I understand you correctly, kind of using the member incentives to push volunteering. Perhaps your members can volunteer more with, a slight incentive, like say a gas card or
Yeah,
is that what you're
something
thinking?
along those lines, yeah.
Okay. Good points. Thank you. Does anyone else agree with Sid and Eddie or oppose? Feel free to oppose. We're all collaborating to consider different points of the argument. So even if you don't disagree with them, but you want to consider another point, this is a really good time to do so. Go ahead, Joseph.
So I was thinking like in the sense of if your organization was to use like the money or like the surplus, you yourself could like make an event advertising this like nonprofit nonprofit support group where you could do a collaborative event and advertise that where you could get other students involved to like per se like let's say you were doing a collaboration event where the donations from like parts of like the money made in Chipotle on a single day that could go towards the organization. You could advertise that event in an event you made with the surplus of money. That was just like a sidetrack thought that I thought might be possible.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something worth adding to for the good of the cause here. Definitely good point of view and perspective to bring into this collaborative agreement. Does anyone else want to continue on Joseph's point or Eddie's point or anyone else's? The goal of this is to come out with a group decision, by the way. So we're all working together. So if you want to take someone's idea and kind of merge it with yours, that feel free to do so as well.
So I just want to point out what I think is a challenge here, because maybe one of the reasons that we're struggling over how to proceed is that we don't have a real clear shared understanding of what the priorities of the organization are. Like, if we look at our membership and what's going on, what's our reality look like? Is it just us, the e-board, and our priority should be recruiting new people? Is it that we've got a great group of people, but we're not really active in doing anything? I think maybe one of the things that we haven't talked about here as an e-board is, what are the actual needs of our community or our group? And is there some place where we can all come to some consensus there?
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, Michael. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone want to kind of come up with with their take on this? So I'm going to share a situation kind of just to help us with this scenario. So let's say our group is a leadership training organization, and we are the nonprofit we could donate the money to, if we so chose to, is a group that donates to help the leadership of underprivileged youth in inner city communities. So our goal is we have a charitable goal as a club and an organization, and we have decent member turnout. So not the best, but certainly not the worst. We have members at all our meetings. Does this help guide us, our decision, or does this not change our decision at all? Go ahead, Natalie.
I feel like kind of like Eddie said, I feel like there is a good probably like distribution like math wise. Because I guess I wasn't thinking that like, oh, we have all the money that we need. This is like extra. So I do still think I would want to spend a bulk on the incentives, and then maybe the money we were going to spend on supplies could be donated or like split in half for a donation, because it is nice to support a nonprofit that's doing a lot of the work that we're trying to do as well. So I would want to give or donate some of it, but I don't know about all of it, since we already like came to a consensus about what we would do with it before this came about. So yeah, maybe like 200, maybe, I don't know.
And do you agree with Joseph's point to kind of use some of the money to promote an event that might raise awareness for the club?
Yeah, I feel like people like that stuff. That's like a big, especially like Joseph mentioned Chipotle. That's like a big, I know that they do like a lot of events like that and donations. So I think that would definitely kind of have like a full circle effect. So that would be good.
Okay, so we're just gonna take another quick vote. Does anyone want to add on anything? Okay, so it sounds like we kind of came back. Natalie summed up some of our ideas here. So is everyone in support of working towards that goal of combining all these ideas, sans the tuition voucher, because we decided against that? But is everyone fine with coming up with some sort of breakdown of donating the money, getting supplies, and spending on member incentives to keep the club running? Can I get a thumbs up for everyone that agrees and a crying face for anyone who kind of disagrees or wants to discuss this further? All right, awesome. So it looks like we've done some collaborative decision making. And one thing, you could go on to the next slide, Rob. So one thing, as we're looking at these references, that I'm surprised no one said is, we don't have to use the surplus. We also could just leave it for next year. If we hit our budget, we bought everything we needed, we made the donations we needed without the $1,000 surplus. So yeah, exactly. Like Michael said, use it or lose it. That's what a surplus is. So I think that was a really productive collaborative decision-making session. And you guys now have professional collaborative decision-making experience that you can talk about, or training, right? So on that note, does anyone have any questions for us? Any comments, any concerns? I thought that was a lot of fun. I hope you guys did as well.
You put our brains to work, Omar. That's a good thing.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And I want to thank you all for coming out today. Thought this was a good event, and you guys could have been outside in the sun. So Michael put in the chat, actually, let me see. So let's talk about what challenges exist to collaborative decision making in groups. So Eddie and Tricia mentioned some challenges that arose earlier, and those were great examples in today's world. So are there any other challenges that we could have experienced if we weren't all proactive and students and learning about these decision making, if we just sat at home eating popcorn and taking classes? So in other words, we're all productive here because we're seeking out these great experiences. But for people who might be on the lazier end in our classes, who kind of drag our groups, what challenges can there be for engaging them, I guess?
A lot of challenges, because I feel like if people, yeah, I know we've definitely all kind of had experiences with this, but if people don't want to contribute, there's really nothing you can do to make them contribute, sans like telling the professor, but usually that would happen like after the fact, like after one person has done the work for 5, that's when you let the professor know. That seems to kind of be the MO, but I don't know. I mean, so especially if you don't know them, it's one thing if you're at least acquaintances with them, but if it's like a complete stranger to you, then it's hard.
Yeah, I agree. From personal experiences, that's been an issue, working with strangers. But I think in the professional world, that's something that school really prepares us for, because frankly, once we leave classes, everyone's going to be a stranger. Does anyone else want to share any other perceived strategies or even challenges that they've seen or expect in the future or right now? Okay, so I see that that Rob put in the chat. So ego issues, or people just looking to put their name on things, like Eddie mentioned, that's definitely an issue. No doubt about that. Has anyone else experienced that, or any people who do that? Or an interesting one, have you ever felt that you've done that? No one's perfect, but it's definitely a good reflection point if you felt that you've done that, and what you did afterward in your group.
I'll say something. I feel like I've never done the like putting my name on things, but I definitely like can be the one with like the ego in the group. But I feel like I've just like been lucky, and I've never really been in groups where I'm like getting like disagreed with. Maybe that's because like I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. Like I guess I've never had like a big like clash, but I feel like I don't know what I would do. Like if I was like, oh, like let's do it this way. Someone was like, no, I'd be like, what? So I don't know. I feel like I could foresee that being a problem with me, less so like putting my name on it, but usually like to do things like the way that I want to do them, which is not good always. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Natalie. You bring good points as usual. And I'm going to pass it off to Trisha because she sees, because I see that she has her hand up.
So fortunately for me, I've never put my name on something that I didn't contribute to. But I just want to disagree with Natalie because I've been in multiple groups with her and she's never had an ego problem. I don't know what she's talking about. You know, she's great to work with. You know, I've collaborated with her a few times on different workshops and she's just great during our meetings and, you know, and Natalie, I wasn't sure why you said that because you really have an interest in everyone else's input on the group. But if you feel that way, but I've never, you know, personally done that myself. You know, I just feel like if it's a group initiative, everybody should play a part, regardless of what that role is within the group. I just think everybody, if you're going to put your name on, if your name's going to be on something, you should play your part. And, you know, unfortunately, like Eddie said, you know, some people do just want to slide on by and, you know, have everybody else do the work and have their name put on something that they didn't even go to one meeting for. You know, I couldn't do that. I would like take a step back and definitely withdraw from something if I couldn't put in the work.
Thank you for sharing, Trisha. You can let us know in the chat how much Natalie paid you to say all that. I'm joking. No, you bring great points. Rob in the chat said, I tend to over contribute at times because I'm worried I will under contribute. Does anyone else do this? It's a really good question, by the way, Rob. Thanks for putting it in there. No one? Okay. Okay, Michael as well. So we got some hard workers in here. So claps to you guys. Any other questions or anything you guys want to contribute or discuss for the good of the cause?
Yeah, I learned that if you CC or put your professor in the email or the chat, things are a little different. So just a tip if anyone runs into problems.
Thank you for sharing the tricks of the trade, Eddie. Anyone else have any good tips or tricks for getting through schoolwork?
You know, I've got a final challenge that I kind of want to throw out there related to collaborative decision making. What do you do when it's just an honest to goodness, like difference in prioritizing or competing values, right? Like, so for the activity you led us through, you know, what if our club was the doing the most good with $1,000 club, right? And Joseph was really convinced that the best way we could do it, you know, good with $1,000 was to contribute it to a food pantry, because during the pandemic, food security has become a real issue for families where it wasn't before. But Natalie's convinced that the best good that we can do with that $1,000 would be to buy face masks for frontline workers, because even though vaccinations are rolling out, there's a face mask shortage in this hypothetical scenario, right? Whereas Rob might think that the best way to spend that $1,000 is to invest it in like helping a student, pay off a fee or something that's keeping them from registering for classes, for their final semester, right? I don't think there is, Alexander. I was just grasping at straws there. But like, they each can make an argument for why that's like the most good that we could do with the $1,000. But at the end of the day, they're all pushing in like 3 different directions. So how as a group do we figure that out?
That's a good question, Michael. I'm going to let others speak first.
I would take a vote. I would start by taking a vote to see where everybody's head is at.
That's a good idea, Trisha. Thanks for sharing that. That didn't even cross my mind. I was actually thinking of kind of looking at what we've previously done, what the group's previously done, and potentially diversifying. But I can see other people wanting to continue and promote what has been done to basically ensure the quality of the work over the quantity of, the different work. Anyone else?
There's this video, and there's a few different ones, but I'm going to send it in the chat actually, because I just pulled it up, but it's super interesting. It's like kind of like the exact situation that you just proposed. It's like a group of, I think it's 7 strangers, and they have to decide like which of them gets to get $1,000 and like leaves with $1,000. So they each kind of like, they really try to like, if you watch this video, it's so annoying, but they really like they have all these different things that they do, like they vote, and they each like kind of like tell their story of like why they deserve the $1,000 like more than the next person. So I think, and that seemed, that like worked in the end, like whoever I guess had the most convincing story or reason, they are the ones that end up, getting the $1,000. So I think like really speaking about like why I think this cause is the most important, and these are 10 reasons why, kind of like to convince people and then take a vote. That's what they did in the video, but I'm going to send it in the chat. But
That sounds like a really interesting video.
it's the worst.
Yeah. Thanks.
like
think
it.
we've all seen the Hunger Games here. No, I'm joking there. But thank you for sharing that. I see that Sid said you need to understand others' perspectives and removing your own biases for the best decision. And Rob said, good point. That is the importance of having diverse membership in any group, and the importance of finding middle ground, which is kind of what we were doing before in our activity. Anyone else want to add on to that? Okay. On that note, I think we've had a pretty productive session. Feel free to hang back if you're interested in the Institute for Leadership and Action, or if you have any questions or any other points you want to discuss with us, we're going to hang back for a little bit. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time. This was really productive, and I hope you guys learned.